Welcome to Hermit Woods, where there's a story in every bottle.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Ken.
How you doing, Bob?
Halfway around the world, and we still get to be together on a
good.
Monday. It's Monday again. Yeah. How are you folks out there in the virtual world, the internet world? I hope everybody's well. It's Monday again. Ken and I are joining you from different parts of the world. Ken is in Seattle, and I'm here in the usual place. And sadly, Chuck is halfway around the other side of the world, and he's probably sleeping right now. I think time zone wise, I think he's got an early flight tomorrow. He had to get to bed early, so he could. Where is he? He said where he was? Do you remember?
I think he's in Lisbon, which is 9 hours ahead of me, 6 hours ahead of you.
Yeah, so he's probably all settled in. So sorry, we miss him today.
Yeah, I think it's 11:30 right now where he is. And he's got to be up early tomorrow to fly.
All right. So for this reason, because we are all spread out across the globe, I thought today we would talk about travel and wine and the experience of traveling in the pursuit of new ideas for craft beverages, wineries, breweries, and distilleries. We call it research, but I don't know that everybody else does. That's just so that I can get a little benefit from Uncle Sam, really, actually. It's really just about fun, having a good time.
Yeah, so, and I think what that, thinking about this too, Bob, it always brings up one of the real key points, and that is the best craft beverages or food come from right at the particular spot. So many places that create great products don't distribute in any way, or if they do distribute, it's a small reach locally. So you need to be close to actually discover and enjoy those very particular, unique products that exist all over the world.
That's right, and that's true for all wineries, breweries, and distilleries. 90 to 95% of all the beers, wines, and spirits produced in the world never leave 50 miles from where they're created, some even smaller distances than that. So if you're really going to discover the great beverages of the world, the only way to truly do it is to spend time traveling and visiting those places in person, and you will discover amazing things. I think you're gonna hear some good stories today about some of the discoveries that we've made recently and in the not too distant past. Before we get into our broadcast, though, I want to just remind a couple people, if you're new to the broadcast, we'd love it if you'd state that you're here in the comment section, say hi, and we can say hello back. And if you don't say hi, or if you have any questions, please ask your questions. Or if you have a travel experience that you want to share today that's unique or fun or interesting that others might like to hear about, please share those in the comments as well. We'd love it if you'd subscribe to our YouTube channel over there somewhere. It's always hard to do this backwards, but somewhere over there. And then there's a bell on your Facebook page. If you click that bell, you'll subscribe to our Facebook Live broadcasts, and you'll get to see us live from all different kinds of places around the world, mostly here at the winery, but oftentimes riding our triple around Squam Lake or out on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean, or who knows, when we go live, you'll learn about it. So we'd love it if you'd subscribe. Share the broadcast with your friends or anybody you think might enjoy or appreciate this conversation. And like the broadcast so that we know that you visited us, even if you don't leave a comment. And just to start things off, I know Janice, who we're fortunate to see almost every week. Thanks for joining us, Janice. And Christine is here. Christine, I don't know that we've seen you come live with us before. So welcome. I'm glad you could make it to our Monday live. Maybe you have been here and just didn't make a note of yourself, but we're glad you could join us, and hope you can join in on the conversation. Again, ask questions, share your experiences, and we'll talk about them with you as we go. So I think I've covered all the details, and let me switch to a new view here. And
all right. Oh, look at all that beer you've got, Bob. Whoops. There you go.
I got to figure out how to get this. There we go. Oh, we
got two of you. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Bob, you're mute. Can't hear you. Somehow we get that back. There we go.
So,
now I can hear you.
Maybe we go to this screen. That doesn't help. We don't want to see two of me. That would be really monotonous.
It's kind of strange. We see the side view of you and the front view of you.
All right. Well, forget the front view. I will show it to you this way. Oh, that's really wild. Look at that.
Oh my goodness.
It puts me into the can.
Wow.
That's really cool.
No, what it shows is on my view, it's a mirror.
Yeah, it's keying in on the green. Oh, it is. It's a mirror.
Yeah.
It shows a fireplace.
I see a fireplace. Where's the fireplace coming from?
I don't know.
Where's the fireplace?
That's
it's a stone.
wild.
It's a stone fireplace with a wood table in front of it and a mantle or a couch.
Look at that.
Wow.
I don't know. We're getting really way sidetracked. I don't know where the fireplace is.
That is some very impressive IPA, let me tell you.
That's really a great IPA.
That is impressive IPA. No wonder you had to travel 50 miles to get that.
Yeah. So anyway, so I just went, you guys know this because we did a broadcast 2 weeks ago from where I was in Portland. So we've been doing a little traveling. And of course, when I go to Portland, me and my wife, Geraldine, eat and drink our way through the city. And literally, that is what I do. When I get to a new place, wherever I am, I get my Google phone out, my Google device out, and I type in breweries near me, wineries near me, or distilleries near me, and I start looking for them. And if I haven't visited them, I make it a point to add them to my itinerary. And the three that I got to visit, not nearly enough for this trip, but I have to be respectful of Geraldine's interest as well, and she's not as excited about all the breweries as I am. But the three that I got to visit was Lone Pine, which is really a favorite of mine. I get their beer pretty regularly. They really do a nice job. They're located in Portland, right in the downtown area, a little bit off of downtown, but there's a pocket. Portland is just it's a incubator for breweries. There's just all these great breweries. There must be 30 or 40 breweries in that city. You can't hit all of them when you go there. Although Carlos, our friend, seems to get to most of them. I
don't know how he does it. And it's not like he does it, once every few months. He does it all the time.
All the time. He was just in Portland last Saturday. He visited 11 wineries, breweries, and distilleries in one day. I did the math on that. Just the hours that wineries and breweries and distilleries are open. How do you fit 11 in that time frame? He's amazing.
Well, I think didn't you and Geraldine get pretty close to that out in California with some of your wine tasting?
I don't think I ever got to 11. I think our record for wineries, and of course wineries are further apart. They're not as close together as when you're in downtown Portland and they're all right there. I think our record was 8 wineries in one day, which well, that was something.
we got pretty close out here in Washington State, in Seattle. Most of the grapes are grown in the eastern part of the state where the climate is drier, better temperature ranges. Over in the Columbia Valley and the Yakima Valley, But of course, all of the people, or most of the people, live here in Seattle, right on Puget Sound and the ocean and south of Vancouver. Well, just outside of the city of Seattle is a small area called Woodinville. And I know you've been there as well. And so many of the wineries have these concentrated groupings of tasting rooms and some production facilities right there. St. Michel, of course, a large one.
Yep.
Zanuit. There's a couple of cideries there. One time, this was a year or two ago, when Maya and I were out here visiting our kids, we went to, I think, 6 or 7 in one day. And again, it's because it was a short distance between them. But still,
Sure.
It's hard to take all that in one time. So I don't know how Carlo can possibly do 11.
I don't. I have no idea. Cheers to him, then. No, he does it every time. If you don't know Carlo DeVito, we've interviewed him on our show. He's a writer, and he's written several books. He just finished his second edition of the Whiskey Bible, I think it's called. I'll have to look it up to be sure, but I think it's the Whiskey Bible. He put that out about 5 or 10 years ago, and he just did the second edition. He traveled all over bourbon country, and again, hitting multiple distilleries a day. And it's a great book if you get a chance to pick it up, if you're interested in bourbons and American whiskeys. He's now working on a book, New England Beverages, or New England Craft Beverages, I think. I'm not sure what the name of it is, but excited to see what he comes up with. He's all over the place, and he's a great guy. So look him up on Facebook. He's out there, and he's a great resource to get to know if you want to know about where to travel to and what to hit. Whenever we go anywhere in the Northeast, we always go, Carlo, where do we go? We're going to New York. What do you think? What should we visit?
Right.
He always has a good answer. So
yeah.
But anyway, so back to my trip to Portland. So I was there. We went to 4 places. On the way to Portland, we went to Hobbs over in Ossipee. They have a new brewery. There's a 20-barrel system. They have the Hobbs Tavern, which is a smaller brewery north of where their new place is. But the new place is just a brewery and a tasting room where you can go in and try some beers. And we stopped there on our way to Portland and had a couple beers. I didn't bring anything home. I have another challenge. When I travel in my Miata, which if you ever travel in Miata, it's really small. And we literally can't really buy anything, which is probably a blessing for us because it's dangerous when you go to all these breweries and distilleries. But we couldn't buy that much because we had no more room. Every inch of our car was filled. So we only got to bring home a few things. So I didn't get to bring beer from every place I visited this time. But
we'll need to build you one of those little trunk racks.
Yes.
with a cooler on it.
Yes.
Something that's strapped down that you can put all the stuff in and it'll keep it cool in the back there.
Designed for craft beverage seeking on the road. Exactly. So we went from Hobbs to Portsmouth, and in Portsmouth, our first stop was actually Allagash. You're probably, many of you familiar. It's one of the more popular and older New England breweries. If you get a chance to visit Allagash, they're just west of Portland. They're about 10 minutes, 15 minutes outside of the city in the suburbs of Portland. And they do some really amazing things. And if you've had Allagash beer, you haven't had what they're brewing at the actual facility. It's very rare to see the variety of stuff that they produce out in the wilds. They only distribute a small segment of what they produce. And again, that goes back to the point we just made. If you're really wanting to try some fun and interesting stuff, you got to go to the source, because it's not going anywhere else. That's the only place you're going to get to drink it. And then we went to Lone Pine, like I said, that brewery, I mentioned that already. And then we went to Blue Lobster, which was really cool. It was a winery, an urban winery in downtown Portland, and they were making wines and ciders. Their wines were imported grapes. I had less interest in that, the imported grapes. I'd rather go to the place where the grapes were grown and try the wines there. I don't have anything against it. A lot of people are doing it, and that's fine. But I was excited about the fact that they're making a cider and they're canning it. And they're also, their Blue Lobster's shtick is they can everything. There's nothing in bottle. It's all canned. All their wines are canned, and there's bottles aren't a choice. And the other thing we
now,
learned,
Bob, were you telling me with that canned cider, is it carbonated?
yeah, so that's, I didn't know you could do this, but they actually, what is it called, Ken, when you dosage?
Yeah, it's a dosage like in a champagne. So you're actually priming the product with a little bit of sugar and yeast. So after the fermentation, all of the sugars have been consumed and turned into alcohol. And if you want to create carbonation, let's say in a champagne, you mix a little bit of sugar with some liquid with the wine and put that into the bottle or can and then seal it up. And the yeast go to work eating up that little bit of sugar. You have to get it just right. They eat up that little bit of sugar and expel a bunch of carbon dioxide. There's nowhere for that carbon dioxide to go, so it carbonates the product. So the trick here is to make sure you put just the right amount. And when you said that they were carbonating their product in the can, I was surprised because they have to nail that exactly. If they put too much sugar, they're going to get too much CO2, and you're going to end up with a can that looks like a football, or worse, it's going to blow on them. And then
to add to it, a can is only half a bottle, so their
right.
size of that dosage has got to be pretty small.
Well, I'm sure that I assume that they're using a canning line. We know from working with Ironheart that the process goes very quickly. So very typically when you're going to do a large volume like this, you'll produce your cider, get it ready, and then you mix in the sugar and yeast into the big tank. And you continually mix that while you're taking off small amounts of it and filling up the cans and then sealing them up. That's probably how they do. I've been very intrigued when you came back telling me about that. So I've been thinking about how to do this.
I got the impression that they actually put each dosage in the can.
Really?
That's the impression I got from talking with him, because I was curious. I was blown away that they could do this. And that's the impression I got. I don't think they're doing the Hermit method where they're dosaging in the tank. I don't think so. And I could see a lot of problems with that, Ken. If you're dosaging in the tank and you're not stirring that liquid very consistently, you're going to get a different amount of dosage in every can.
That's true. That's true.
So I don't know how they could do it in a larger tank. It seems like it would be more technologically challenging to do it that way than it would to do a very specific microdose in each can. But I don't know. We need to do more research on this. I guess we got to go back to Portland. Research.
Yeah. Is that canned product, Bob? Then of course there's still yeast in the can. When you pour that out, does it come out cloudy?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
So that was my trip to Portland, and I had an off trip. I only went to 4 wineries, breweries, and distilleries. I usually do much better than that.
You're slacking.
I know, but I'll make up for it on the next trip, I promise. So you're in. Before I go to Seattle with you and talk about some of your travels, let's check in with our guests here.
Sure.
Let's see. Jessica Jones, hi there. Joining in. I live in Concord, and she gets our wine from the liquor store. Great. I'm glad you could join us, Jessica. If you have any questions for us, if you want to share some of your travels with craft beverages, share them in the notes, and we'll try and share them with the rest. And Leah mentions that Mike and her are on a quest to visit all 50 states. And let's see. And in order for us to qualify state, we need to do a tasting and an activity in that state. Last week was whiskey and bourbon in Kentucky and Tennessee with some random wine and beer mixed in. That is a great adventure. I like that idea. I
think we need to do that too, Bob. You and Chuck
think so too. I've visited all 50 states, but sadly, I can't say that I've had an opportunity to visit wineries, breweries, and distilleries in all 50 states. Probably a lot of them, but not all 50. So I'm on the list with you. I'm going to join that adventure, and Chuck and I and Ken will probably join together. We'll make that a pact before we die. We got to have beverages in all 50 states. Sounds like a good plan. Geraldine's here. Hi, Geraldine. Glad you could join us. And Gary's here. Great to see you, Gary.
All right. Excellent.
I'm here.
And Marika's here, and Marika's record is 13 breweries in a weekend.
Wow.
That's a lot. Now
That's
remember,
a lot.
Carlo did 11 in a day. So even though that's a lot, Carlo still, he holds the record. He's the king of this stuff. It's amazing. But no, 13 is a lot.
That's impressive. No wonder she fits in so well.
That's right. Hey, look at this. Chuck's joined in. So I guess you couldn't sleep or something.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be in bed. You have an early flight
That's
tomorrow.
right. You're supposed to be sleeping, Chuck.
So Ken, you're in Seattle. So have you discovered anything out there? Tell us. Are you drinking anything? I haven't seen you drink anything. You've been on the show now for 10 minutes.
Chuck, Bob, I started right at the beginning. I haven't seen you drink anything.
Oh, no, I have.
That's, your magical mirrored can that shows fireplaces and couches.
Yeah, I wonder if it's still a fireplace.
Yeah.
It does.
It does.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
And a grand piano.
And a grand piano.
Where is that photograph from? That is wild. Is that where?
I have
Where is
no idea.
That's really bizarre.
No idea.
It reminds me a little bit of you once took a photograph. You and Geraldine went out to visit her folks, and they had a big.
No, that's not it.
But that's not it.
No.
I don't know where that is.
I got to find out. This is really great. Anyway.
That's amazing. So I'm out here in Seattle visiting my new granddaughter and my grandson, who's almost 3. And with the COVID thing still happening, we are really hunkered down. So we're taking lots of tests and not exploring, not going out into public places, not doing much other than spending time with them, which has been great. So I was able to pilfer a little bit of beer off of my son. He grew up, I have a photograph of him when he was still in diapers, sipping some of my homebrew back from the early 90s.
I bet you he's pilfered a few beers from you over the years.
Oh yeah, probably. And so he picks up kegs from local breweries. And then he has a growler that he uses to tap that off. It's a more economical way and doesn't have a lot of packaging to deal with, and he just swaps the keg back over. So right now, I'm enjoying a bit of Manny's Pale Ale from Georgetown Brewery right here in Seattle. So that's what I'm drinking at the moment. It's a pale ale. I don't know if that.
Yeah, you could see that nicely. Yeah.
And it's got all the details on the sorts of materials that are in it, the gravity, the hops, the rest of it that went into making this particular beer. In the Northwest here, fantastic region for growing hops, and it really helped put the Northwest on the map in their hop production. And then, of course, all of the innovative West Coast IPAs that developed in California, Oregon, and Washington. Have really led the charge out here. So it's a great place to come and drink beer. Max had also put a 6-pack of a local beer in the fridge here when we showed up at our Airbnb, which was real nice. But that's all gone. So
in the first night, I'll bet. Janice asks if having 13 beers all in one place counts, and I count as a great night. Probably a tough morning, but I don't think it counts as hitting. It doesn't compare to Marika's 13 breweries in one weekend, but
right.
It still sounds like a fun evening.
Yes.
And Ken says he's been drinking, so that's why he's not sleeping.
You were watching other things, I guess.
Yeah, and Paul Howard, Paul Howard, He's on with us. Nice to see you, Paul.
Oh my goodness, Paul Howard.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a blast from the past. I worked for Paul Howard. He was in Culpeper County in Virginia back in the 90s and into the 2000s, and did many water supply projects for the county and directly dealt with Paul. Great to see from him, hear from him. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's really wonderful. Our son has had his second grandkid, and our daughter is having her first kid next month. So we'll be up to 3 grandkids this year.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I expect the trip south is probably coming. There's probably some wineries and breweries and distilleries near Nashville. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's on the itinerary coming up.
oh, speaking of itinerary, I shared the places I visited. I wanted to share the pictures. I shared some pictures of those places. So let
Oh,
me
good.
show you. Let me show you what they look like. For all of you who's looking to travel and follow in the footsteps that we took to Portland, this is the new Hobbs facility. Can you see that all right, Ken?
Yeah, that looks great. And did you say that's a 20 barrel system?
I believe it's a 20-barrel system, yeah.
Wow, so
20
they've
barrel
gone way
fermentation.
up. The original Hobbs, if I remember correctly, was a 7-barrel brew house with some 14-barrel fermenters. So this
Correct.
is a big step.
Yeah, and they're set up here for distribution. They're really trying to get their beers on the shelves around New England. So that's I think their goal. And there weren't a lot of. This was a Sunday afternoon. I was kind of sad to see there weren't that many visitors that day, but we had the place to ourselves more or less. And then off to Allagash, and Allagash has set up their entire brewery outside. They built this pavilion, and there's several tents and other outside setup areas where now you can engage with them entirely outside. You don't have to go into the wine. In fact, you can't go into the brewery any longer. They've shut it down. And you can do all your ordering and drinking and enjoying your time with them out on the great outdoors with covers for rain. And they do have live music there, and there's lots of games around the place to play. It's a really cool setup. So if you get to Maine, outside of Portland, Allagash should be high on your list if you haven't visited there already. From Maine,
You showed their Allagash White in a can. Do you remember what beer that was kind of unique that you had right there at the brewery that you don't typically see in specialty shops or elsewhere?
I did. I had a hopped lager. So it was, and they only sold it there. That you can't get it anywhere else. And Allagash. I didn't know this, but they don't make IPAs. Any. It's amazing to hear because IPAs are so popular in there, and almost everybody has one in their quiver. But Allagash that's not their thing, and I respect that. I think that's great, and so it's fun for me because I tend to want to explore the IPAs, and this sort of breaks me out of my. This is again good reason to travel. It gets you out of your comfort zone, and you got to try some things you haven't tried before. So yeah, thanks for asking. That was a lager that was a hopped lager, and it was very good, and I find that to be the case with every time I visit Allagash. I try all these unique and different style beers that I don't usually drink, and I'm almost always happy with them. They really do a nice job.
Yeah, they're an amazing. Allagash is an amazing company to me, kind of like Dogfish Head, where they have been able to scale and produce and maintain just fantastic beers over large distribution. Their main, beers like the Allagash White is just a fantastic beer. It's consistent. It's always outstanding, even though they've scaled and been able to distribute that pretty widely. And then they just do tremendous, unique beers, really focusing on some of the barrel sours that they do. Very unique, and they lead the field. And so many people look to what's going on in Allagash for their small craft approaches. So it's really fantastic that they're able to do that.
Even better than that, they have really, and I don't know how much they had to do with this. I'm not sure, but their little area of Portland has become an incubator for small breweries. So the street that Allagash is located on is an industrial section of the city, and there's all these warehouses along that street, and those warehouses have over the years converted over to breweries. And right now, when you drive to Allagash, you can visit, I think, 4 or 5 breweries, maybe 6, all within a few hundred yards. So those of you who are trying to break Carlo's record of 11 in a day, well, you can get 5 or 6 knocked off the list right off the bat just by walking from door to door if you visit Allagash. And many of the breweries that were housed in some of those warehouses over the years have gone on to become some of the biggest breweries in Maine, like Bissell Brothers was one of the upstarts that started on the street that Allagash is on. And the Maine Brewing Company, which is now a massive facility out on Route 1 near Freeport, started in one of the warehouses near Allagash, and there's another brewery that's now right next to Rising Tide that started there and has expanded to a new facility over near Rising Tide in Portland, and so it's a really great place to visit, and it's just exciting what they've done, what they've contributed to the beer world in the Northeast. I don't know. Do you know how long they've been around? It must be 30 years at this point.
I don't know, but that's probably a good number, something along that range. Yeah. They do some fantastic Belgium-inspired beers, really outstanding Belgian-style beers, which I particularly enjoy.
Kind of like Schilling's up in Littleton.
Yeah.
So then we went over to this whole section of Portland where this Blue Lobster is located. That's where the cider that I shared comes from. It's in a very industrial part of the city, and a lot of these abandoned industrial buildings that weren't being used for anything else had become homes to these wonderful breweries, wineries, and distilleries. It's really cool. So again, if you're trying to hit that number of facilities visited in a day number, Portland is the city to do it. You can visit just right here. Blue Lobster is right next door to Lone Pine, and literally 50 feet to the right of this picture is Lone Pine. And so this is where the Blue Lobster folks are. This is where that cider that I shared was located, and they do a variety of canned beverages. And you know what else is neat about traveling and visiting small craft breweries and distilleries and wineries? You almost always get to meet the owners and the distillers and the brewers and the people that really make it happen. I met the owner of Blue Lobster when I was there, and I got to chat with him for a half an hour and learn a little bit about his place and his background. And we shared some stuff about Hermit Woods, and I'll bet you within not too long of a period, we'll probably see him visiting us someday. So that's the other great thing about the small places, is you get to meet the people that do the work. And here's Lone Pine, right next door to Blue Lobster, and Lone Pine I'm back to Blue Lobster, sorry. These are some of, I'll stay here for a second. These are some of the other canned products that Blue Lobster does. They do a blueberry infused wine, and then a couple classic wines from grapes from California.
So that's like you were saying there, like they say Chardonnay, and it says Monterey on it. That's interesting. Yep. They can put that on the label.
Maybe because that's where they bought the grapes, they're allowed to do that. I don't know. That is interesting.
I remember when we were early on when we were importing grapes, we had some restrictions for what we could say about the wine.
Yeah, they say Lodi on their Bayside blend.
Wow.
So that's where they're getting the grapes.
It's fermented and canned right there. Is that right?
Yep, all of it's done right there.
Okay.
So back to Lone Pine. Lone Pine, I remember visiting Lone Pine within a year of when they opened back in 2015 or 16. And now they own a 20 or 30 barrel system over near Sebago Lake. We stopped at that brewery on the way back from Portland last time we were there. I forget the name of it.
I can't remember which one it is.
Right around the corner now is Lone Pine in a big warehouse there.
Wow. So, the only way that happens is if there's a whole bunch of people drinking beer.
That's right. Well, and
it's everybody. It's everybody out there that is fueling, supporting, helping make all of this expansion, all of these fantastic. It's almost like a renaissance of new creativity in beverages. That's just such fun to be part of too. It's great. And it's all by the patrons. If people weren't buying this stuff, enjoying it, interested in trying the latest and greatest and most unique, none of us would have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, it's really a great time to live with so many small producers producing such interesting products and really, really interesting and different and experimenting, and you can't get to experience this in any other way. I mean, if you think about trying to go into a supermarket these days, 90% of the shelves in the supermarket are made up of what is 3 to 5% of the producers in the world. What do we have here?
So this is, speaking of supermarkets, Maya and I just went up to the supermarket, and for a whopping $5.99, I could get a 6-year-old Cabernet Merlot blend from just over in the Columbia Valley here in Washington State. And it's really not bad at all. It's really quite nice.
Excellent. What is it? What's the grapes?
It's a Cabernet Merlot blend.
Oh, you said that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Cabernet Merlot. So it's Bordeaux.
Yep. It's a Bordeaux-like blend. That's right. I know I'm shifting us drastically here. I've got to pour some for my wife here, Maya, who's out here, and our little dog is with us. Mindy is here as well.
Of course.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Maya.
It looks beautiful over there. Is it raining?
Looks like the sun's setting there in Meredith.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So another time in recent years, about 2 or 3 years ago, Geraldine and I had a visit to Washington. And if you remember, we had an employee who came from Washington, and she came from a winery actually in the Gorge.
Yes. Subduction.
Subduction?
Yes, I believe that was the name of the winery.
No, it was not Subduction. It was, it's another name. We visited it when we were there. Sarah was her name.
Yes, Sarah.
And, it wasn't Subduction. I'll probably think of it. But anyway, it was.
I know it was a geologic term. And it was in the gorge.
Syncline.
Syncline. That's it. Yes. Yep. Thank you. So syncline is a folded series of rocks. A subduction zone is an active plate margin where things are being pushed down underneath something else. Syncline. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Geraldine and I, we were in Portland, Oregon, not a few years ago. I think it was 2019.
Was that a trip when you were coming back from Hawaii?
Yes, we had gone to Hawaii and certainly visited some wineries, breweries in Hawaii. And on our way back, we stopped in Portland to visit some friends, and then we took a side trip to the Gorge, which, interesting today, I just read the New York Times, the wine writer from the New York Times, was just he wrote an article recently about, there's some really wonderful wines to be discovered in the Willamette Valley, which is really what, when people talk about Oregon wine, they talk about the Willamette Valley. But he was saying, don't underestimate the potential of what you can find in some of the other regions. And he mentioned the Gorge specifically. And it's true. Geraldine and I were there for just a day, and we visited nowhere near Carlos standards, but we visited 3 or 4 wineries that day, and it was a fantastic experience. The Gorge is a very beautiful place, and we got to visit Syncline, where Sarah had worked, and they all remembered her there fondly. And actually, we visited. Sarah was working not too far away. We got to have lunch with her that day. That was kind of cool.
Oh, excellent!
But some great wines being produced in the southern part of Washington State, and just over the border in Oregon, there in the Gorge area. Really cool.
Yeah, that's the Columbia River that comes off the plateau and wraps around and then makes its way out to the ocean.
Right near Mount Hood. It was a beautiful. Everywhere you went around there, Mount Hood just pops up out of nowhere. It's just this amazing mountain. So
yeah, I could see it from the airplane past Mount Rainier as we flew in, all snow covered.
Yep, absolutely. So year-round snow covered, I believe.
Yep.
So. Let's check in with our guests here, see with our friends here. Deb Yeager's here. She says, Marika Youngs, you are a rock star. See that? Marika, are you still here?
Yes, she is, Deb.
Yes, she is, absolutely. And let's see, Priscilla. Hi. Oh, good. Priscilla's joined. Better late than never. Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And she's enjoying a can of Petite Blue. Way to go.
Excellent. Priscilla.
So
Way to go.
Yeah, that's one of Maya's favorite. Maya's in the background here, and she heard that comment. She's like, "All right, way to go." That's what she enjoys as well.
So let's talk about a couple of experiences that come to mind when we've traveled together, where we've discovered something really unique or special. And the one I wanted to bring up was Upton.
Yes.
We were traveling in South Africa, and we tapped some of our friends who have had some more worldly experiences in the wine world than us, and been traveled a little more widely. And Clark Smith, who was a connection with ours in California, said you absolutely should visit. Do you remember his name?
No, but
it may come to us.
Yeah.
He's the owner and winemaker at this winery called Upton Vineyards. Now, we would never have found this place ever if we had just been traveling through wine country of South Africa and wanted to discover something new and different. We would very likely never have found this place. It is so far off the beaten path. It was down these little tiny roads in the hillsides, wandering around. I mean, especially in the fact that we were in a very foreign place. I mean, we didn't know our way around at all. And but we were told to go there, so we went. And we ended up on this little tiny road that our rental car could barely make it down. You almost needed a four-wheel drive.
I remember that, Bob. I was a little worried that we were going to get stuck back there on that road. I mean, it really did not look like, your typical sort of winery. It was just a back dirt road in this kind of sparse farmland up against this hill. And we weren't quite sure. That's like, sure enough, there's a little tiny faded sign, and we pulled into it, and we were in the right place.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it was the wineries, the owner and winemaker lived there on the setting, and there were several outbuildings, and they were distilling some wonderful distilled products. We went into we got taken on a tour, and we got to see the barrels that he'd been aging for over 20 years in the back of his winery. And he was a veterinarian before opening his winery, and I think he was still practicing veterinarian.
Yes, he had a little dog house made out of a wine barrel, of course.
Yeah, exactly. It was such a cool experience. And his wife made cards, these local cards, and we got to visit her studio. But what stood out more than anything was he was crafting, I think the best wines I had on our entire trip to South Africa were had that day. I think
they were tremendous wines, and his name was Edmund, by the
Edmund,
way.
That's right. Yes,
Dr. Edmund Ettel. And what I'll never forget is the Frankenstein-like equipment that he had created himself and repurposed. I mean, he's practicing sort of a permaculture sort of approach to working with the land and growing the grapes. And then the reason Clark Smith knew him and turned us on to him was that he was employing a micro-ox approach that Clark had found out about in some of his time in France. And this micro-ox helps develop very strong wines that can withstand oxidation. It's kind of counterintuitive. You put in a good dose of oxygen when a red wine is very young, and that builds oxidative strength to the wine. We had a 2009 Cabernet that he had created with this micro-ox process, and he didn't use any sulfur as well. Sulfur is a very effective way of reducing the effects of oxidation. You know how wine gets older and it tends to turn brown, and it develops some of those wonderful aromas and flavors as it gets some of that oxidation, but it can go too far. It's the same thing as, I know we've used this analogy before, of slicing an apple open and you watch it turn brown on the counter. There are different flavors that develop in that oxidated apple. Same thing happens with wine. And this micro-ox process builds a strong wine, and you don't need to use any sulfur. We purchased, I know, a couple of bottles and brought them back, and they were just fantastic. Incredible flavors, incredible terroir, that uniqueness to the flavor that you've had Cabernet here, you've had Cabernet there, but nothing was like what we had at Upland in terms of Cabernet.
Yeah, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Talk about, the best wines are discovered within 50 miles of where they're made. I don't think you can get his wine really anywhere.
No.
He was distributing on a very small scale, and he had some very specialized customers that traveled that rocky road up to his place to buy his products because they were so good. And he didn't make that much. I don't know, maybe he made 800 cases or something of wine a year, if that.
Right.
And,
yeah, if that.
And then his distilled products, just the same, really amazing brandy. And there are a couple things. He had a rum that I think it was a rum.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, tremendous.
Yeah. So that's a highlight of traveling the world and visiting a place when you talk about the best products are discovered in a short distance from where they're made. Do you have a
To me, one of the most impressive experiences I had that's helped shape me, my mind, and thinking is Gideon Beanstalk.
I was just going to say that.
In the Sierras. That, here again, Clark Smith, who's one of these sort of fringe avant-garde, really well-educated and expressive winemakers, turned us on to this guy. And we drove, 3 hours or something, all the way to the east, went way up. We find this little road, and we're tucked back in this canyon at a fairly high altitude for wines. And he's growing Pinot Noir, and we get there, and he goes, it's really nice you've come all this way, but why did you come to see me, Ken? You make wine in the cellar. I make wine out here in the vineyard. And we said, well, we've made this journey. Let's talk a little bit about that. And if you don't mind, let's spend a little time in your cellar and talk about wine. And that experience was fantastic. Just talking to him when he's talking about how he picks a Pinot Noir grape. And when we were sharing Lake House White with him, and I was talking about how I was picking a rose hip, and he went, that's it. That's exactly what you need to do. You need to be out there touching that fruit, thinking about that fruit, thinking about the relationship to its surroundings and that peak ripeness, and then you help foster that into the glass. It was great. It was mind-blowing, and it has helped shape a lot of what I do today in winemaking from that time.
That was exactly. That was another experience that I would have mentioned as one of the real groundbreaking. And Gideon produces he's around 800 cases of wine, which is a ridiculously small amount of wine. And so you're never going to try Gideon's wine unless you visit. And here it is. This is
he's the gentleman there on the right.
Yeah.
And
this is Clark, who connected us with both our experience in South Africa and with Gideon in California. And here Chuck is, of course, and all of the wines we consumed that day. This trip was where I learned how to spit my wine out, because I would have been comatose had I not.
Yes, absolutely. It's tremendous, and I'll never forget that time going with Randall Graham in what was the little town?
San Juan.
San Juan, and go into that little Mexican restaurant, and there wasn't even enough room on the circular table that we were having our lunch at to fit all of the bottles that were there. There were two or three winemakers there, and everybody had brought 6 or 7 wines to share, and it's part of the game. I know in geology, we talk about rocks and places we've been and particular structures, S1 and S2. I know you and Chuck are learning that lexicon now, but in the wine world, it's fantastic. You go and you sample and sample and sample again, because that's how you understand what different regions, what different grapes, what different processes bring to the glass.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah. No, those two are really, really amazing highlights. And anything else come to mind for other of our travels, places that you got to visit someplace really? Oh, I know one. And again, we owe Carlo for this one. You're gonna have to help me with the name. It was a winery in New York on our visit to the Finger Lakes, and we met.
Oh yes, Klepper or he made this beautiful white wine.
Yes.
And went through the process of, in his little tiny tasting room across the street from where he used to work as the winemaker for a bigger winery.
Right, and I think he produced probably 300 or 400 cases.
If that, I think it's Clemmer. Something like that.
That sounds right. I'll post a link to this because this is pretty close by. So all of you out there might have a chance to get over to New York and visit this place. I'll post a link in the comments after the show is over. Highly recommend. This was one of the best experiences. It was brief. We were there maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes, but it was the most impactful half an hour, 45 minutes I've had in a long time. Sitting there drinking this man's wine, hearing him talk about the wines. And again, here you are in this small winery with the owner, the winemaker, telling his story and sharing his wine with you in person. You aren't going to ever get that at Mondavi. You're never going to get that at the big wineries in California and Napa and Sonoma. You're never going to meet the winemakers. You're never going to meet the owners of these big facilities, and you're certainly never going to meet them if you buy your wine at Hanford's, or at the local liquor store. You've got to travel. You've got to go to where the people are making the wine and the beer. It's profound, and you will absolutely taste the best wine you've ever had. Or the best beer, or the best.
That was tremendous, and like you said, not that far away.
Yeah. It's you don't have to go far. I mean, that's what I love about New England. We Maine and Vermont and Massachusetts and Canada, just over the border to the north of us. As soon as we can start having a free flow of traffic between the two countries, there's some tremendous opportunities within 2-3 hours of here in the southern Canada, Quebec region. With wines and spirits and ice wines and all kinds of interesting products that you'll never get to taste unless you go there and visit them.
That's right.
So,
and I can't wait for the future adventures down to Chile and Argentina and wherever else we end up.
Yes. We have a couple comments while we've been talking. Gary says he was in on Sunday. We have no more large men's vests. We fixed that. The shelves are full. We now have large men's vests, so I hope you get a chance to get back up here and get yourself one. And Janice says Marika needs to get up a beer bus tour. Absolutely.
I agree. I'll be on that bus.
Absolutely. Marika's she's our local, our resident specialist on beer. She
brought you some beers, didn't she, Bob?
She did. Yeah, I'll share the let me add the stream here. And so Marika just came back from Vermont, and Heady Topper. You can't go to Vermont and not grab a can of Heady Topper. For a while there, it was considered the best beer in America by many people's opinion and lots of reviews. And she also got one, and I thought this was fun. It's too bad that Craig isn't here, because she got one called the Crusher. We always talk about crushing it. Well, Heady Topper has a double IPA called Crusher. So there, I can't wait to have that one.
Yeah.
And then you remember, Ken, you and I and Chuck, we got a chance to visit Fiddleheads. I think Maya was on that trip. Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Maya was on that trip. Remember
Right.
Fiddleheads?
Yeah.
It was right across from the Shelburne vineyards.
Yeah.
we just happened upon it in our travels. And they have excellent beer. They're one of the early the upstarts for breweries in Vermont, and they've grown. They're very, very large and distribute pretty widely. And then a brand new brewery I've never been to, Four Quarters in Burlington. So this is it's called First Light. It's an IPA with Mosaic hops, and Marika spoke very highly of the Four Quarters brewery. So yeah, those are some of her recent travels in the beer world. And Geraldine and I have just talked a couple of days ago. We need to plan a trip to Burlington, so we need to go to some of these.
Burlington's another great place for beer, for sure.
Ah, look, Greg is here. I'm glad you could join us.
Excellent.
Crusher. There it is. There, oh, look at that. We can see the fire again. It's all green.
Wow.
That is fantastic. Look at that.
That is fantastic. And it's the same mantle and grand piano.
Yeah, I'm going to crush that later. In fact, that's what I'm going to crush as soon as I'm done with the show here. We're going to open the crusher. Right. I'll let you know how it came out. Glad you could join us, Greg. And Priscilla mentions Niagara-on-the-Lake. Yes, thank you, Priscilla. If you have not been up there, have you been up there, Ken?
Oh, yeah, a couple times. It's
unbelievable.
Fantastic. It's fantastic.
It's 45 minutes over the Niagara Falls Bridge into Canada, and then it's just 45 minutes, not even 35 minutes north on this little peninsula. And there's like 150 wineries in, 20 miles. It's a small little area. And they're doing amazing stuff. And you think of that as a cold part of the world. Everybody thinks of Buffalo and Niagara Falls is cold, but they have this, they're at the corner of two of the Great Lakes, and they have this lake effect that creates this really great growing experience for vinifera wines in this little area that's just phenomenal.
The geology has a lot to play on the Niagara-on-the-Lake situation. There's a very significant scarp and drop in elevation as you come into Niagara-on-the-Lake, and that sets up the microclimate that allows them to grow such outstanding vinifera grapes in that area.
Yeah, it's actually, I think, some of the great vinifera growers in the Northeast. There's some great examples of vinifera growing in the Finger Lakes, although not a lot. It's still a tough area in the Finger Lakes, mostly in the white wine category. Not a lot of great reds there. The Long Island region of New York has some really great examples of reds and whites. They get the Gulf Stream effect that's affecting some of that region. But the most surprising, and I think per winery, given the number of wines I tried, probably the best vinifera wines growing on this part of the world, some of them are coming right out of the Niagara-on-the-Lakes region. I was really blown.
I agree. Yeah. And again, I think Riesling and some of the other whites are really the best suited to this area, to these regions. And of course, everybody likes red wine, so they keep pushing that envelope. And but it's you can't go against nature. You got to work with it to make it happen. And when you find out that a particular grape grows particularly well in an area, then that's something to work with.
Sure, but don't write off the reds. I mean, no,
it's still great. Yeah,
standing red wines in Long Island. I've had some in the Hudson River Valley. There's some good examples. Again, they're fewer and farther between. You've got to hit 13 places in a day to find them, or you've got to know somebody who knows where to send you, like Carlo, yes, who's been there and visited the places in the past. So that brings up a good point. If any of you out there who are watching this right now are traveling and heading off to some new area you haven't been to before, hook us up. Tell us about us. Tell us about your plans and let us know. Because if we've been there, we'd be happy to share our experience. And if we found some little surprises or some cool places that you shouldn't miss, we'd be happy to tell you about them. So if you're planning a trip, please let us know, and we'll try and send you to the right places. So that's amazing. I can't believe it. We're at the end of the hour again.
Already?
So, yeah.
Already?
Yeah.
We're just getting going.
I know. There's so many places. I mean, as we've been talking, I've been thinking of other surprises that I've discovered, wandering around in my travels, both in the beer and wine and certainly distillery category. And
Bob, I'm thinking that it's been a little while. Perhaps we could focus one of these Monday events with a sort of tour again of South Africa, or a tour of the Finger Lakes, or a tour of the Canadian area, or whatever, bring up some pictures, get some wines from those areas, and talk in a little more detail about those particular areas. That would be a fun event.
Yeah, you'd probably be surprised to learn that I still have some wines from South Africa sitting on my shelf.
I'm shocked. I'm sure you're not surprised to know that all of mine are long, long gone.
I'm saving them for this very special occasion when we're having a revisit to the trip to South Africa. By the way, I'm reading a book now, The Wines of South Africa. A reporter contacted us. He's doing a story on blueberry wines that will be out soon in one of the wine publications out there. Excited about that. But I learned that he wrote a book about the wines of South Africa, and I am in deep. This is a great book. I will share more about it in the future, and I will certainly share it with you, Ken and Chuck.
Great.
Really, really great. After having visited there, and then to hear this person's really in-depth history of wines of South Africa is really fantastic. So I'll share that in the notes as well, which book it is, if anybody else has any interest in that way. But and then a couple more comments. Lynn says, Carlo did good by us on our vacation. Yes, remember last week we learned that Lynn and Matt were in the bourbon country, and they asked us if we knew anybody who could help point them to some good places to stop. And we hit up Carlo, of course. And sure enough, I sent the list to Matt and Lynn, and I'm glad to hear you guys were able to discover some fun places from Carlo's list. So yeah, it's a small world. The people like us who really are craving this kind of experience. There's not a lot of us out there, so we need to hang tight together, and we need to share our experiences with others, and make sure that we get to have fun together. So anyway, I think we need to come to a close. I want to thank everybody for joining us for another Monday. Hopefully next Monday, I'm not 100% sure Chuck will be here. I think he might be coming in either late Monday or Tuesday next week.
Good, I'll be there.
I know he's around. You'll be there. So at least you and I will be there. Maybe Chuck will be there. Hopefully, I know he's coming home next week, but we'll see what his travel schedule's like. And thank you all again for joining us. It was another great Monday. Always a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Hopefully I'll get the word out about what we're going to be talking about before the show. But you never know. Sometimes you just have to, it's just like.
I think that's part of the mode here, is that it's, show up and see what we got going on. Because that's what we do.
Exactly. Well, that's part of what the travel experience is like. You Google wineries in the area, and that's it. So thank you, folks. It was great to be here with you again on Monday, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Monday. Have a great evening, everybody.
Yeah. Cheers.